Yeah, I'm kind of struggling now with
Yeah.
what to write about because I'm not very energized by this moment in time.
No, no. What are you gonna write about? Traveling with teenagers to the bathroom or traveling to
I mean,
teenagers to the living room? It's another episode of the Germany Experience, the podcast about life in Germany as seen through the eyes of outsiders, and welcome to it. And guess what? It's another week and another bit of good news when it comes to the coronavirus in Germany. As of today, 4th of May, when this episode comes out, everyone can go to hairdressers again. This is very exciting. I think a lot of people are very, very excited to go to hairdressers. I've seen some people on video conference calls, and everyone's looking a little raggedy, I have to say. So from today, you can get back to it. And apparently they're all very booked up. So I don't know if you're going to get an appointment if you don't already have one yet. And there's all kind of hygiene considerations that they have to take into account. So good luck if you're planning on going. And I would, as I said, in my Facebook group, the Germany Experience Facebook group, I posted a picture of myself. Now, I don't have a problem with the hair because I've been shaving it for quite a while, but I was pretty scruffy with the old beard just simply because I didn't have to go out every single day and see people. But I shaved and I got to try out a new style. Got to try out a new look, which was very short-lived since my wife made a very strong veto about it. But I would love to see your photographs before and after if you're going to the hairdresser, or if you're not going to the hairdresser pretty soon, just your before. I would love to see your scruffy hair situation. So go and post those photos. Join the Facebook group and post those photos. Now, staying on coronavirus for just a little bit longer here, it seems like a divide is starting to form, where in the beginning everyone was pretty much in solidarity to how the government was dealing with coronavirus. Now suddenly it seems that there are two factions forming, and it's not across party lines. It's not liberals versus conservatives. It's just kind of random people are feeling one or the other. And there's the two factions are those who are behind a slow return to normality, taking it easy, who are thinking the government's doing a good job with how they're slowly pacing the return to normality, and those who just want to get back to our old way of life right now. In fact, a few days ago in Stuttgart, thousands of people protested in the city center over the current measures that are in place. And I saw some photos. I'll post the link in the show notes. Not a face mask in sight, by the way. So the question is, why are these measures in place? So the whole idea behind it in the beginning and now still is to flatten the curve, to not overrun the healthcare system, and to buy time until better treatments. The thing is, right now, Germany is doing great. So that's good news. But it's maybe not the time to just go back to normal right now. We're still dealing with something that has very real and very dire consequences. Now, I know the current situation is heartbreaking because I know there are people who this is not easy for. And to be honest, for me, this has been easy. I still have a job. I have a good family life. And this time has been really a breeze, basically. But I know it's not like that for everyone. But we still need to be careful here. There was a post that popped up in my Facebook feed from a friend. And it's a poster of a young girl. And the text, roughly translated, reads, "The simple corona solution. Those who are afraid and panicking because of the coronavirus want to stay at home, in quarantine, wear a face mask, and get vaccinated. For everyone else, live your lives, go out, have fun at your job, and enjoy life. That is freedom." What? First of all, I don't want to be in quarantine. I don't want to wear a face mask, and I don't want to get vaccinated. And second of all, this has nothing to do with fear. I'm not afraid for myself. But what I want to do is help those who are vulnerable by not spreading this disease. And I do want to make sure that we don't overrun our healthcare system. And I'm pretty sure that this person who posted this, by the way, if they got sick and couldn't get treated because the ICU was full of COVID-19 patients, would have a very different opinion of this. And thirdly, how can we exercise complete freedom when it might mean a death sentence for others? As I said earlier, I know it's hard for some right now. I know that. And not just some, a lot of people. There are people who have lost their jobs. There are people in abusive domestic situations. So I understand that there is a strong urge to get back to normality. I understand. I get it. But here's the thing. That's what the German government is doing right now. They're trying to find a way to get us safely back out there again. We're not saying never go back to normal. No one's saying that. We're just saying let's take our time. And is the answer to organize thousands to march into a city center without face masks to protest? Is it just go back to normal and let the chips fall where they may? So I feel that there's an important debate to be had here, because it's not an easy decision no matter which way you go with this. And in almost both ways, you're saying that one group of people should suffer for the sake of the others. And that's a very difficult situation to be in. I did ask this question in the Germany Experience Facebook group. What is the right thing here? And the answers to the poll were overwhelmingly towards a slow reopening. Here were some of the comments that people made about this. China started to relax their quarantine when they reached less than 100 cases a day. Germany is still at around 1,000. But it's obvious that making money is more important than keeping people safe. So Vlad has pretty strong opinions there. Sandra wrote, I know there are several people hurting in different ways because of COVID-19, but every other week we hear different measures or new systems or treatments that don't work, so it is better to go slow. Rushing the pace would not help in the long run. And Raphael, another previous guest on the show, we should go slow, otherwise all that has been done so far will be for nothing. We hold it up till now. Let's keep it up. It is crazy hard, but it is for the best. So I was happy with those responses, but I was really hoping that someone from the other camp would reply. And as I said, there were a few people who did place themselves on the other camp, but no comments came through. So I would love if you have an opinion on this. You don't even have to join the Facebook group. Send me an email to info@thegermanyexperience.de or go into the Facebook page or just get in touch with me somehow and let's have a debate. I'd love to understand the other side of this. All right, after all that, let's get to our guest this week. And it is Linda from the blog called Travelteening. And it's a blog where she writes about the travels that her family have made in the past. She gives tips for people who are wanting to travel with teenagers. So I sat down with Linda and asked her more about the blog and more about her experiences. Now, they've decided to be here for 3 years, and the idea was to travel as much as possible. But of course, coronavirus has put a stop to those plans. So I spoke about not only the travels that they've done so far, also about traveling with teenagers and what that's like and what tips that Linda has for traveling with teenagers. And I also spoke to her about the effects of the coronavirus lockdown on her family. Here is Linda from Travelteening. Maybe you could just give me a background of where you started and how you ended up in Germany.
Sure. So I actually spent several years living in Germany as a child. My dad worked for the military, and we were in Munich for 4 years. Lived in suburbs outside of Dallas, and came back after 4 years in Germany and realized I was a different person. And the travel had done that to me. And just over the course of high school and college with travel, just really loved the excitement and adventure and that came with travel. And when I met my husband, he also loved to travel. He studied German. So kind of we had this, I lived in Munich, he studied German. And over a course of time, we honeymooned in Germany. We had our son baptized here in Germany. And then when this all kind of came about, it was like, let's go. This opportunity to go. Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So that's how so you've had a strong connection with Germany for a long time then.
For a long time. Yeah. Yeah. My parents have lived here over the course of 3 different time periods. So it feels a little like home.
Yeah.
Even though I don't speak any German.
Yeah. You still don't speak German?
Nope.
All right.
I'm okay with, Hausfrau German. You go to the grocery store and I can kind of understand, but as soon as I open up my mouth, it's clear that I don't know what I'm saying.
But your plan, if I understand correctly, and I think you mentioned this in one of the mails that you sent to me, is just to, actually I know where I saw it. It was on your blog. So on the Travelteening blogs, you'd written that your plan is a 3-year plan of being in Germany.
For 3 years. Yeah.
And the idea was to travel around and basically explore Europe for that 3 years. How far into that 3 years are you now?
Just a little over a year and a half.
Okay, so still halfway.
Mm-hmm.
And so I guess there's no real need for you to integrate fully by learning the language and what have you.
Right. I mean, my husband works at the consulate here in Frankfurt, and my kids go to an international school, so their education is based in English. And I work in marketing, and I realized after several job interviews, if you don't really know the German language, marketing is not the profession to be halfway into German.
Yeah. I think that's also a misconception that a lot of people have. I've been very fortunate. I work in marketing, and I've got a job with a company that's in English, but it's only because they produce all the materials in English for an international market. But that is the rare case. What I'm learning about in Germany is like that's not often
No.
what the situation is. But you're also in a pretty international city. You're near Frankfurt.
Yes.
So
it's totally doable. I mean, when we go into Frankfurt, into the city, everybody speaks English, and even out in the town that we live in, for the most part, I can muddle through with my very basic, A1 to A2 German, and that's
right. Kind of
a lot of pointing and
gesticulating, interpretive dance.
Something like that, right?
Okay, so, and then the kids go to an international school, I think I saw it in the blog as well.
They do, yes. And they're learning German, but it's a requirement for everybody who comes to the school to learn German. So everybody's at different levels when they get there. So they're not really learning German.
Yeah. So how has the whole integration thing been for them then? Are you finding that they're integrating themselves more with their friends that they're making, or are they making a lot of foreigner friends as well at the international school?
So, I mean, there's so many different nationalities that are at the school. And so it's not, I would say they have a very big mix of where those kids have come from. And a lot of them are the third culture kids anyway. So they've lived all over the world, and they're used to landing in one place and quickly adjusting and acclimating.
Right. And you said they're learning German, but their German level is improving, or is it kind of?
They know more than they think they know. And they actually are probably better than I am with it. So even, train announcements, they can understand better than I can. And it's just the confidence level to speak, but I think they could manage.
You, in one of your blogs, I think it was Why Travel with Teens on your website, you said traveling is deeply important to your family and we prioritize it over many other things. So why specifically is that? Why is travel so important to your family?
I think you learn so much when you travel. People choose how to spend money, if you want to buy cars or clothes or stuff. And we've just felt, since we started traveling with them, my son was probably 10 or 11, the first family trip we took abroad. You just learn so much about history and culture and food. And there's learning to adapt when your plane is running late or when things get delayed. There's just so many lessons to be learned from travel that we just felt like this was very important for them to experience. And even us, the older I get, it's harder to travel. So even for me to learn to be a little bit more relaxed, which I tend not to be. So
really, are you high strung?
I am a little bit, yeah.
But I guess what you're saying is about your kids and the value that you see in traveling is that, I guess that's something that you learned, as you said earlier on, from when you were a kid,
right? When
you were probably in your formative years and were changed a lot by the travel that you were doing. And that's something similar that you want for your kids.
Yes. I mean, and it's even if, when you say learning about culture, not even just learning to go buy a train ticket or, when you're at a restaurant, kind of what the nuances are of that particular country is just, you're still learning, even if it's, not going to some event.
Yeah. So what kind of traveling have you done since you've been in Germany with the family? A lot, because on your website, I was like, wow, this is all the places you've been so far. So you've done quite a bit.
We have. We've been to Barcelona, Paris, Berlin, London, Greece, Italy, Budapest. It's a lot. And then my kids travel for sports as well. So they'll go to The Hague or various kind of places within the area. So we've done a significant amount of travel in the last 18 months.
Yeah, and pretty much what you came for.
what we came for. And I will say, as a side note, we lived in Stockholm for a year when my kids were very, very little. And we arrived and said, oh, we've got 3 years here. We'll wait. We'll travel later.
We'll take it easy.
We'll take it easy. We have little babies. And my husband was called back home 11 months after we got there.
Okay.
And that was it. So
no more.
We said when we got here, we were going to travel every single vacation. Every second we had, we would be traveling, because you never know when stuff's going to happen.
Well, guess what? Guess what, Linda? Stuff is happening right now. Wow. But you've at least up until this point, you've done quite a fair bit of traveling and seen a bit of Europe. So that's at least a positive point, I guess.
It is. And over the fall break, the kids even said, we're really tired of traveling. And we said, nope.
No, that's not an option. 3 years, kids, 3 years.
3 years, lots of travel. And then you sleep when we get home.
What would you say is easier? Is it easier traveling with small kids? How small were they when you were in Sweden?
Babies. My daughter was 7 weeks when we moved, and my son was a year and a half.
Okay. And now, so do you think, I guess that's more difficult than traveling with teenagers, because teenagers can look after themselves.
Oh, yeah. You have kids, you know.
I have young kids, so I don't know how much better or worse it gets when they're teenagers. But yeah, traveling with kids, we were doing fine when it was just 2 of them, I think. But now that we've got 3, it's just become a bit of a logistical nightmare. We just can't do it. We actually said, funny enough, this year was the year that we said we're only going to travel local vacations. We're not going back home. We're not traveling to South Africa. We're not going anywhere else because we got a 4-year-old, a 6-month-old, and then a 9-year-old special needs kid. So it was like, let's not travel for a bit. Yeah. So what is it like traveling with teenagers? Do you have to do a lot of logistical planning for them? Or is it that they kind of seek out their own things to do?
So I don't know if they seek out their own things to do. I think it's taken us it's taken a lot of trial and error to get it right. The first few vacations were fine, but I think over the course of many, many trips, we've kind of figured out what seems to work for our family in terms of schedules. And you think it's only with little kids on their eating habits, but teenagers get hangry, and
yes, adults get hangry.
I mean, it's just, everybody has meltdowns even when they're 16. And so just trying to kind of fine tune everything. And I think, there's a few things we've learned. It helps if the kids can help plan the trip a little bit. We try to do as much as we can to map out, but when we say we're going to Paris, have them look at some websites and blogs and pick out some things that are absolutely must see and must do. So we make sure that we see that. I think we learned probably after our trip to Paris that sometimes you can't see everything, and it's okay. I mean, there's a lot to see in some cities, and you just won't get to everything.
Yeah.
So
I think I read on one of your blogs as well that you have the first few days are full gung ho energy, and I think, was it you that said you should plan as much in that early stage as possible to see as much as you can, because the fatigue will inevitably set in shortly thereafter.
Yeah. So we try to, it's the day one, pack in as much as we can, because again, if something happens or people get sick, or at least you've done a good job that first day and people are more energetic, I think. And then what we do is every day after that, we plan like one thing. So maybe a walking tour, maybe a food thing, maybe a museum visit. And then if everybody is tired after that, then we're like, okay, whatever. At least we did something.
We got our money's worth so far, so it's all good.
Yeah.
And one of the other things that I liked is that you plan in downtime. One of the points that you made.
Yes.
And I think that's a pretty good idea as well.
They need that. And I think sometimes the downtime even comes separated. My son and I like to just keep going. And he's happy. He's like, well, we're in Rome. Why would we sit and read a book? Whereas my husband needs that time to recover. And my daughter just needs time to play on her phone. So we're now okay with splitting up. Like, we'll go here, you guys can go here, and it's totally fine for us all not to be together every waking moment.
Okay. I think that's great. I think that's a good approach as well. It's maybe better for everyone.
And to get an apartment. That's the other thing.
Okay. No hotels or
no.
Good Lord, no.
No. Everybody needs their own corner to kind of go hide in.
Yeah.
At the end of the day.
Yeah, I guess that becomes more and more important the older the kids are. They need their own space. And the adults need their own space.
Yes.
Yes. And that's definitely some of the tips that you were giving in those articles. I was like thinking this is good advice, just even if you don't have teenagers. Like, see everything in the beginning, have a planning downtime and everything. So it was pretty good reading.
It's hard when you have something planned. I think the last day that is, like a full day tour, because we did that in Greece, and while the tour was fabulous, by the end of the tour we were just done. I think exhausted. Yeah.
Do you have any fun stories or funny stories of traveling with the teenagers? Something that sticks out in your mind?
Funny, and then we've got a not so great one too. So, funny story was we went to Paris, and we had our horrible train issues getting there. The toilets all broke in the train, and we had to detrain somewhere before entering France because there were some rules about it. So it was a whole nightmare. And my daughter she just broke down. We were standing on the platform, and she was just crying about, the change of the trains. And I was like, we're still going to get there. It's just, we're going to get there 4 hours later. It's okay. It's okay. And then she had a meltdown when we finally got to the apartment. The Wi-Fi didn't work. And
oh my God.
For teenagers, that's like a deal breaker.
Yes.
If the Wi-Fi doesn't work, then
it's just the end of the world, literally.
It's the end of the world. So I'm texting with the owner, and they're telling me they'll try to get it resolved. And so she's, looking up Starbucks on her phone so we can go to Starbucks so she can get Wi-Fi.
It's like a Wi-Fi junkie, basically.
Basically. And so in that blog post, I talked about and there was another meltdown she had that same day, how she'd had 3 meltdowns. And when she was reading over it, she's like, I did not have that many meltdowns. I said, yes, you did. So just like toddlers, they melt down as well.
Yeah.
So, and then we had our most recent trip to Athens. We were sitting around, it was New Year's Eve. We're sitting around at a cafe talking about how much we really liked Greece. And we wanted to come back and give, other parts of Greece a chance. And as we're sitting at the table, some beggar comes up and steals her brand new iPhone.
Oh no.
And takes off. And so it took us just half a second to realize it. And she stands up, screaming, he took my phone. And so she and my husband ran through the streets, chasing this guy down, and the waiters are pointing out where he went. And so he, of course, like a movie, went down some dark alley, and they decided maybe we won't go down there.
Yeah, we'll let that phone go.
So, New Year's Eve, we got back to the apartment, and the silver lining, I think, of that was my son, kind of took the lead. She was so upset and figured out how to, deactivate her phone. And he got her set up on his computer to talk to her friends. And so there was kind of this little mini bonding time for our family over something that just
was really unpleasant. Yeah.
It was really unpleasant for her. And since we've already said Wi-Fi is important to her, that the iPhone was
the other component.
Important.
So you had a pretty stable and settled life in the States before you left.
Yes.
And to give it up for 3 years, how difficult was that for the kids to leave their friends, for you guys to leave, I'm guessing, friends and family as well for 3 years? 3 years is quite a long time.
It is. So for my kids, it was fine at the moment. They were kind of in a transition with friends. And so it was to pick up and leave. Everybody was very excited to go. Yeah. They were happy to get here and do something new. And I think it was an easy transition for them.
And what advice could you give someone who's maybe in the future planning something similar? If they're wanting to, what is the, let's put it this way, what is the biggest mistake that you've made coming over here for that 3 years, something that you missed or didn't plan correctly?
I think it's a decision that has to be made by the whole family. I mean, we had told the kids before we were moving that this might be coming, so they were already mentally prepped. And my husband and I had been kind of working towards this for a few years. So we were all in this together for the move. So I think if someone else were going to do it, I would say make sure everybody's on board, because moving, a 15-year-old who has this awesome life back at home, it's going to be really hard to convince them. I mean, they're really into friends and relationships that it might be difficult to get somebody to go. I had an awesome job that I left, and I think the biggest mistake was I tried to do too much when I first got here with my job, and it just kind of blew up in my face.
You mean you're working too hard at it, or how do you mean?
I took on a new role at my job that was kind of starting a new line of business, but I had landed here, and the Wi-Fi is awful, and I didn't know the language. The grocery store would take me, an hour and a half. The kids, the time difference was weird, and so by the time they were done with school, I was logging on, and it was just, I had forgotten when you move how long it takes to get settled. And so my advice would be, just when you move, just give yourself a little time to get settled.
Some breathing room, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, because if you're dealing with a demanding job at the same time as acclimatizing and getting used to where everything is and how to do everything, that can be pretty taxing and stressful. I can imagine that.
Yes, it was not fun.
But you still have that same job, right?
No.
No. Okay,
Yeah.
so you left that.
I left that. Mm-hmm.
Okay, and that was a good decision for you?
Yes.
Now let's get to this. What's happening in the world right now with the whole COVID-19 mess. So it's tough, yeah. So you're here a year and a half into your 3-year plan of traveling and seeing everything, and then suddenly this has happened, which has affected obviously everybody and people at different levels or at different intensities. Let's put it that way. Mm-hmm. How has it been for you, a family that values traveling so much, to not have an idea of when you'll next travel, how it's all going to happen, and also to know that you're losing? I mean, how do I phrase this? It sounds kind of superficial when we're whining about losing travel time, but of course we're having this discussion in the context of understanding these are minor privilege problems in the big picture. But for you guys, it must pretty much hurt to be losing out on this travel time.
I think if we knew how long it was going to be, it might be a little bit easier. I mean, we took a trip to Thailand right before this all happened, and even that was like, and we had a trip planned for spring break, and even when things started shutting down here, we went ahead and booked flights to Sweden for the summer, like hoping that things would be better. And now it's probably clear that it's not.
Yeah, I think it's a bit too soon. Yeah.
So it's unsettling, just because I don't know how long things are going to be like this. When Oktoberfest is canceled, it's like,
yeah. You know how serious it has to be for them to cancel the Oktoberfest.
Yes.
That is, that was the last thing to go. They're like, no more Bundesliga, no more big thing. And very, very last thing was, okay, the Oktoberfest. So it is very interesting to kind of try and figure out when this is going to all, if it's just going to blow over, or if we're going to be dealing with this. So when do you guys make the decision, and is it a possibility? Do you sit this out for the whole 3 years here where you are, or do you at some point make the decision to go back?
No, we're here for the full 3 years.
For the full 3 years.
And I would, at this point, choose to be here, I think, rather than back home. Yeah. I mean, it's a little bit of a mess there, and we have, the circumstances here are just easier for us. I mean, the kids have their distance learning, and we've got a bigger space to live in here than we do it back home, a nice garden. And so, I mean, it's the whole setup is just better for us here.
Yeah. And how are your kids doing with this whole social distancing thing?
I think in the beginning they were better with it. It, it it all seemed to make sense, and we were very good about staying close to home. And here in Frankfurt, the rule is you could be out with one other person.
Yeah.
And I think it started out as kind of like, oh, this is a nice change of pace. But when school went into spring break and then spring break was over and they started back with their online learning, I think the reality hit them that we may not be going back.
This could be a while still. This is going to be a while.
Right. And for teenagers, I mean, this is like prime social relationship, building friendships, kind of working out all of those kinks, in high school that, boyfriends and girlfriends. And I think this is really hard for them to digest.
Yeah. I've often, in the last few weeks, I've often thought what it must be like for teenagers specifically, because obviously a lot of people in our friend circle have younger kids like us, and we don't really know people with teenagers. So I haven't really had the opportunity to basically ask how it is, but I can imagine. If I think back to my teenage years when I was 15, yeah, it was just, you're free, you're leaving the house on your bicycle, you're going to visit friends, you're hanging out with people where your parents don't always know where you are. But it was just, that feeling of absolute freedom at that age. Mm-hmm. And now with this indefinite situation, I can imagine that it's pretty tough.
Yes, it is tough. And my hat is off to those with younger kids, because that is also not easy. I see people with little kids and I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah. I can 100% confirm.
I have been there, so I can imagine the nightmare. So nice job. But with the teenagers, the freedom thing, I think has been hard too, because one of the awesome things about living in Europe is my kids can get on the U-Bahn and go into town and they can meet their friends, and which they can't do where we were at home. And so this sense of freedom, and now it's like, you could go for a walk maybe.
Around the block. So you've still got your travel plans for July though. You're holding on to that with optimism.
Well, I think my husband is a little more optimistic about it than I am, but we had a lot of travel plans for the next 3 months. My daughter was going to go back to the US on her own for her first solo trip, back home to see a friend. And each of my kids had a birthday. We were going to do a solo trip with them, like a one-on-one trip. So we're, everybody's kind of grieving a little bit the losses, and it's hard.
Yeah. I just want to talk about the blog for a second. So it's travelteening.com, and you, as we've been saying, you write a lot about traveling with teens. There's a lot of tips, but there's also general travel tips. You've got information about different destinations. I see you've got history lessons about various places that you've gone to based on what you guys saw.
Yeah.
And you were updating that while you were traveling till pretty recently, I guess.
Yeah, I'm kind of struggling now with what to write about, because I'm not very energized by this moment in time.
No. What are you gonna write about? Traveling with teenagers to the bathroom, or traveling to the living room? It's not exactly much. Going to the park with teenagers.
And I even thought about going back and writing. There's places we've been prior to this that I have not written up. We did a whole road trip through Scotland before we moved here, and went to the Fringe and did that whole thing. So I mean, there's things I could write about, but it's just not very motivating.
Yeah. I think that is the case. A lot of people, like when you're looking on social media and the internet, everyone's doing all these productive things, and they're like, oh, this is a time to catch up on all the writing that I wanted to do and everything. But actually, it's a pretty stressful time. You're down everybody's throats if you're living with a bunch of people. You're kind of making space for everyone to live in and everything. It's not that easy to find inspiration during this time. So yeah, I hear you.
And there was a whole, I think of a week or two where everything was like virtual travel. Let's go to a museum and let's
Yeah.
go do this. And
Yeah.
and I'm like, this is not why I travel.
No, I could do that from my home where I lived before, basically.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it's been, yeah.
Not so great.
No.
Well, let's hope it ends pretty soon, because I mean the statistics are looking pretty good, at least at the time of recording right now, and they're talking of easing up some of the things. So yeah, I guess we just have to hope. And there's still a lot of places within Germany, I guess, that you could go if the borders are closed. There's a lot of choices here in the country.
Yes, and we've talked about that. If we're able to freely move here in Germany, there's a ton of places that we haven't visited. I've never been up north and to Dresden, and we've been to Munich, but the kids have not. So just depending on what's open, and maybe by that point we'll be fine with takeout all the time. And takeout in Munich is better than takeout in Frankfurt.
Oh yeah, sure. All right. Well, Linda, thanks very much for taking the time to come on the show. People can find you at travelteening.com, right? Travelteening.com.
Yes. Yeah.
Where can they find you? You're on Instagram?
I'm on Instagram and Facebook under the same handle.
And I'll put all the links in the show notes so people can find you at all
Super.
those places. Cool.
Super.
Thank you very much for the chat. It was a lot of fun.
Thank you. It was great to be here.
Thanks for listening, everyone. And of course, the music in the show, as always, theme song provided by my band, 10 Cent Janes, and additional music by Ryan Anderson until the end. I will talk to you next week. Auf Wiederhören.